So, you got
Rotated. Every year, the Pokémon TCG has what's called rotation. This is when a full year's worth of cards, from approximately 3 years prior, are fully removed from the standard format of play. This makes room for the next year's lineup of releases, as well as to not overwhelm the game with too many cards to choose from. Every time it happens, the game changes drastically, and this time is no exception. We'll be losing some incredibly fun and consistent cards that have defined the game for 3 years at this point. So today, we're taking a look at some of the more playable cards from the first 6 sets of the Scarlet Violet era. And of course, we're starting off strong with... Right alongside the Scarlet and Violet video games, we saw the release of the Scarlet Violet base set. Yep, right alongside it. Let's start with Miraidon EX. This card's power was evident on announcement. Its Tandem Unit ability allowed you to search your deck for 2 basic lightning Pokemon and put them onto your bench, essentially turning a single Pokemon into 2 more every turn. This meant that setting up your attackers and support Pokemon was even easier than eating bread. With access to the electric generator item, you could power up a whole bunch of different attackers, and trust me, there were a lot to choose from. This next deck was never actually considered good, but it was definitely something you had to be mindful of. I'm talking about Undersea Tunnel Wug Trio. 3 colorless energy would allow you to flip 3 coins and discard 3 cards from your opponent's deck for each heads. Despite being on a coin flip, this is some insane card mill. And with cards like Reversal and Ignition Energy, it wasn't ever too awful difficult to power up. Too bad I curse you with triple tails! We also had Spidops EX. This card definitely had potential, but came up short every step of the way. It attacked for 90 plus 30 more for each colorless in your opponent's active retreat cost. It comboed perfectly with its Trap Territory ability to add 1 more colorless to the retreat cost for each Spidops you had in play. Add in another later released Ariados with a similar ability, and you could start hitting for some serious damage. Unfortunately, all of this is made moot by Latias EX giving all basic Pokemon a 0 retreat cost. There are plenty of other notable Pokemon here, like Squovit. This little guy shuffled your hand, placed it at the bottom of the deck, and let you draw 1. This could easily be paired with other draw support to refresh your entire hand. Banette EX, which when paired with Salvatore, could get some sneaky turn 1 item lock-in. There's a Klefki that would turn off the abilities of opponent's basic Pokemon, and a Hawlucha that would ping 1 damage counter on 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon, setting up for some later KOs. An Armarouge that let you move any fire energy from your bench to the active, and finally, Revavroom. Discard an energy from your hand, and then you could draw until you had 6 cards in hand. All very decent cards in their own right, if a little niche. But now, the real star of the show, Gardevoir EX. This Pokemon, unlike the rest so far, had been good through every format it's been legal in. Psychic Embrace would let you take as many Psychic energy from the discard pile and attach them to your Psychic Pokemon in any way you like. The caveat being that you would put 2 damage counters on the receiving Pokemon. However, this is not a downside. The Drifloon from this set does 30 damage times the amount of damage counters on it. Throw on a Bravery Charm to give 50 more HP, move the damage around to fix a little bit of the math, and this basic, 1 prize, easily searchable Pokemon is one-shotting nearly everything in the game. Charizard, Dragapult, even the odd Palafin EX if you move the damage around properly. Almost nothing is standing in the way of this child-snatching balloon. But that's just 1 attacker. Guardy also has access to Screamtail, which does 20 damage times the amount of damage counters on it, but to any of your opponent's Pokemon. The bench is not the safe haven it used to be. You also had access to Jellicent EX that prevented your opponent from playing any items or tool cards when this Pokemon was in the active spot. Mew EX had the ability to copy any of your opponent's active attacks, and even Munkidori could be used to stall for a turn every so often. But we'll talk about you next year. This one Pokemon had so much support that it could be played in multiple different ways at the same tournament, so you never actually knew we were going to have to deal with that match. So yeah, it's pretty good. As far as trainers go, we got a bunch of good reprints with cards like Judge, Energy Retrieval, Nest and Ultra Balls, and Professor's Research. But we also got some great brand new cards like Penny that let you pick up any 1 basic Pokemon in play to either free up a bench spot for something else or save it from being knocked out. Electric Generator was the best energy acceleration lightning types had for a good long while. Most of the time. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and attach up to 2 basic lightning energy you find there to your benched Pokemon in any way you like. There's also Jack let you search your deck for 2 evolution Pokemon, really good for the decks with built-in draw engines. The Beach Court Stadium increased the attack of basic Pokemon's attacks by 1 colorless for some neat disruption, And finally, Arven, one of the strongest cards in the history of the game. It let you search your deck for an item and a tool card. This would easily let you grab Rare Candy and TM Evolution for big evolution decks, or Nest Balls and other basic search for the big basic EX decks. I know I'm massively underselling this guy, but trust me, losing this one's gonna hurt. That about wraps up base set. Not a bad start to a new series, but we definitely needed more to really spice things up. Lucky for us, we got some pretty fun stuff in this set, like United Wings. Flamigo, Murkrow, Wattrel, and Dartrix all had the same United Wings attack. 20 damage for each Pokemon with this attack in the discard pile. Using Flamigo's ability to grab 3 more Flamigo from the deck, then turboing through your deck with cards like Professor's Research and Brilliant Blender, and using Sudden Transformation Ditto to copy the attacks of discarded mons, this deck could hit for 360 damage with a single Dark Energy. Not to mention 3 of them having relevant typing, meaning you were hitting for some crucial weakness. Just be careful not to turbo too hard and run out of deck to play with. I find it odd that the starters for this generation didn't get EX cards in the first set, though well, they aren't very good anyway, so we weren't missing out on much. The only one worth talking about would be Meowscarada EX. My beloved. Bouquet Magic let you discard a Grass Energy from your hand and deal 3 damage counters to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Good for knocking out low HP Pokemon, or for setting up its main attack, Scratching Nails. For 2 colorless energy, it dealt 100 damage, plus 120 damage if the opponent's active already had damage on it. This was actually the first deck I ever actually seriously played, so I can't hate on it too much. That being said, the best this deck ever did was 18th at the 2024 Perth Regional. Nothing to scoff at, but that's all it has going for it. Lo siento, mi amor. Squawkabilly EX, which, though it's never been the focus of any decks, saw play in nearly every big basic deck in any given format, and then some. Squawk and Seize let you discard your hand in order to draw 6 new cards, but only on your first turn. Despite that limitation, this was great for decks that wanted to see as many cards on their first turn as possible. Miraidon, Raging Bolt, Claw from Roaring Moon, heck, even some stage 1s like Ceruledge and Archaludon made some great use of it. So many different decks were able to make use of the Squawk at one point or another, making it one of the best support Pokemon of all time. Even if its low HP has lost me more games than when women race against Leah Thomas. Yeah, I went there, come at me, bro! Caparaja EX only recently found success, and it was decent success, if only for a short time. Taking 30 less damage from attacks on top of a 300 HP Pokemon is pretty dang good. So is hitting with Nosequake for 260 in return. It does deal 30 damage to your benched Pokemon, but the monkey, does not concern itself with extra damage. Set up 4 of these nuisances, and you can move around so much more damage than should be allowed, setting up for some ridiculously easy knockouts. Is anyone still here after that Leah Thomas joke? I like to think not. Honorable mentions go to a card like Fortress EX, which would explode itself, giving your opponent 2 prize cards, but it let you search your deck for 5 basic grass energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Wo-Chien EX would deal 60 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon for each prize that they had taken. This Spiritomb turned off the abilities of all Pokemon V in play, and Tinkaton let you discard a card from hand to draw 3 more. And lastly, Noivern EX, a great tech attacker that could either prevent the damage from opposing basic Pokemon, or stop your opponent from playing any special energy or stadiums from their hand. The stars of this show, however, are Chien-Pao EX and Baxcalibur. Baxie's Super Cold ability lets you attach as many water energy from your hand to any of your Pokemon in any way you like. Decent energy acceleration to give to a Pokemon that deals 60 damage for each energy discarded from all of your Pokemon in play. Even Chien-Pao's ability comboed perfect with this, letting you search your deck for 2 water energy. As long as you built up the required amount, you could one-shot anything other decks threw your way. One shot, one kill. The trainers in this set had some real power to them too. Artisan let each player search their deck for a basic non-rulebox Pokemon and put it onto their bench. The Choice Belt tool let any Pokemon deal 30 more damage to any Pokemon V, fixing the math in some instances. Boss's Orders got reprinted here, which can we get rid of this card already? Great special energy types like Jet, Reversal, and Luminous Energy allowed for some interesting plays not afforded by basic energy. And finally, the streamer girl, Iono. When played, each player would shuffle their hand, place it at the bottom of their deck, and draw cards equal to their own remaining prizes. So many different ways to use this. Drawing new cards in the early game, heavily disrupting your opponent late game. Actually, that about sums it up. Every deck played this card. It's too bad every time I use it to give my opponent a 1-card hand, it's the 1 card they need to win the game! I apologize for my outburst. Let's continue. Please. Toadscroll EX was a pretty fun deck. It's too bad I didn't put too much time into it myself. Colony Rush dealt 40 damage, plus 40 more for each of your benched Pokemon, with a Grass Energy attached. When paired with Ogerpon EX for extra energy attachments, and Area Zero Underdepth for a larger bench size, it was a relatively easy thing to OHKO anything in the game. Even in current formats where Pokemon have 380 HP, this was probably one of the best rogue decks on the market. It even made 5th place at the 2025 North American International Championships. Only reason it didn't win is because it was being played by a girl. Pidgeot EX is a busted support Pokemon. Its quick searchability reads, once per turn, you may search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. The only thing keeping this card from being banned is that you can only use one quick searchability per turn. Still, being able to search for any card from the deck is the absolute pinnacle of draw support. Almost nothing tops it. Need to set up another attacker? Here's the final piece of the puzzle. Need a boss's orders to KO a low HP Pokemon and close out the game? There it is, all essentially for free. Though it may take a hot minute to get set up, seeing as how it's a stage 2 Pokemon. Who am I kidding? Turn 2 Pidgeot and literally everything else you could possibly need, turn 2 every single time. A bunch of different cards in this set seemed good, but couldn't ever seem to pop off. Palmot EX let you discard 2 Lightning Energy from itself, and deal 220 damage to any one opposing Pokemon. Tyranitar EX dealt 250 damage if anything on your bench already had damage on it. Glamora EX reduced your opponent's bench size from 5 to 3, as long as it was in the active. Full Metal Knuckle on Melmetal EX did 90 plus 30 for each metal energy attached to it. And Revavroom EX, which could have 4 tool cards attached to it, allowing for all kinds of odd combos. All cool, all trash. Oh well, the set saves itself here with what was BDIF for a long time, Charizard EX. Everything about this card is good. Infernal Rain letting you attach 3 fire energy from the deck to any of your Pokemon in play, Burning Darkness dealing 180, plus 30 for each prize card your opponent had taken, 330 HP on a Dark-type Pokemon, perfect synergy with Pidgeot EX and later Dusknoir, which dealt extra damage, on top of forcing your opponent to take another prize card, upping Zard's damage even more. Absolutely nothing about this card was bad for the longest time. Of course, new sets always means new counters, so it can struggle sometimes, but it has always been a staple deck, no matter the format.
You should have gone for the head.
Huh. I haven't mentioned Terra Pokemon yet, have I? Well, sometimes a Pokemon will have an extra title or piece of text to differentiate them from other kinds of Pokemon, whether that be Trainer's Pokemon, Ancient or Future Pokemon, or here, Terra Pokemon. See, in the video games, a Pokemon can terrestrialize and either change their typing for defensive reasons, or become powered up in their existing typing. Here, it fully changes what you're strong against and weak to, or nothing at all. Yeah, it's kind of a weak gimmick, not really changing anything much about the game. But hey, they can't take direct damage while on the bench, so that's cool. Couple more great stadiums came from this set. Pokemon League headquarters made it harder on big basic decks by making their attacks cost 1 colorless more. Speaking from experience, some really annoying disruption. But also Town Store, allowing either player to search your deck for one of any tool card. We also got Letter of Encouragement, which let you search your deck for 3 basic energies if one of your Pokemon were knocked out last turn. And the final trainer worth mentioning is Vengeful Punch, which would put 4 damage counters, or 40 damage, on any Pokemon that attacked and knocked out the Pokemon this tool was attached to. And that's it. Everything else sucked. Not even an exaggeration, the rest of the cards in this set were terrible. Good thing up next we've got... Actually, I take it back. This set's kinda mid too.
Well, that's just rude.
No great archetypes came out of this set, but there's still a couple of good support cards. For instance, Transformative Start Ditto. Only on your first turn, and if Ditto was in the active spot, you could discard the Ditto and replace it with any basic Pokemon from your deck. Great for getting other support or even attacking Pokemon out quicker than usual. Just don't look into its eyes for too long. The horrors of the universe lie in there. This Dodrio let you put 1 damage counter on itself in exchange for drawing a card. It pairs really well with cards that already want damage in play, such as Hisuian Zoroark V-Star or Hisuian Arcanine. Dodrio itself hit for some decent damage too, doing 10 plus 30 for each damage counter already on itself. With a 1 colorless attack cost, this card should have been very good. However, the existence of so many bench sniping attacks running around turned this card into a liability more than anything. Wheezing was kind of a fun gimmick. Its ability read, if this Pokemon is in the active spot and is knocked out by damage from an attack, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is knocked out. This kind of revenge ability is actually pretty funny, but being on a coin flip was always going to be inconsistent at best. Zapdos EX's multi-shot lightning attack would deal 120 damage to the active and 90 to an opposing benched Pokemon that already had any damage on it. Miraidon would occasionally play this for some cheeky turn 2 board wipes, but already needing damage in play didn't synergize too well. Seriously, this set had some cool ideas, but not enough people were willing to dedicate the time to really flesh them out. Lucky Bonus Chansey would potentially let you draw an extra prize card. If you had drawn it from the prize cards, you had an open bench spot to place it on, and yet another coin flip. Starmie would discard itself and put 2 damage counters on any opposing Pokemon, but having to set it up and repeatedly recover it from the discard pile is just not worth it. Marowak could potentially hit up to 210 damage for 2 energy, with a little help from some Cubone, but that's actually a pretty high energy cost for such a low amount of HP. Even Alakazam EX had potential, because it could attack from the bench, but only hitting 120 damage at a time meant your opponent was probably just going to use boss's orders and completely ruin your game plan. All of this negativity, but there is one real card worth talking about. Mew EX, for 3 colorless energy, could copy one of the attacks of your opponent's active Pokemon. If you could power this up with something like Gardevoir EX or Joltik, you could copy from mons like Charizard and Dragapult, and potentially steal the game with their own attack. Even decks that didn't use Mew for its attack made great use of its ability. Once per turn, you may draw until you have 3 cards in hand. It really doesn't seem like much, but so many of the big basic EX decks were constantly dealing with small hand sizes. Having any extra draw for those decks came in handy so many times, you'd think it magically placed the game-winning card on top of the deck. 100% the best card in the set, no contest. Geez, even the trainers in the set were pretty mid. Bill's Transfer let you look at the top 8 cards of your deck and put any amount of Pokemon you found there into your hand. Cycling Road let either player discard an energy from hand and draw a card. And Rigid Band to reduce the damage Stage 1 Pokemon took by 30. These all had very niche uses and never really did anything substantial. They're like children. I'm glad they exist, but they really don't serve enough purpose to justify it. Well, I'm glad that's over with. Mildly disappointing set, competitively speaking. But, and this time I mean it, good thing up next we have... Finally, a real powerhouse of a set. So many good cards came from here. But first, I'll take a second to mention that this set introduced a brand new mechanic in Ancient and Future Pokemon. Similarly to Terra Pokemon, it's simply an extra trait added onto some cards that let them interact with certain trainers and other Pokemon of the same attribute. Definitely better utilized than Terramons, and I like a lot of these cards. I'm gonna miss them. Not you. Iron Hands EX has seen so much play, from an assortment of toolbox decks to Miraidon to even its own future box deck. 4 energy would allow you to hit for 120 damage. Pretty low damage output considering the cost. But then you realize that if this attack takes a knockout, it would take an extra prize card. This effect is absolutely insane. This one card almost completely invalidates low HP 1 prize decks, because they are no longer low HP 1 prize decks. Even some EX decks could struggle against this, because Brian Hand here only had to take 2 knockouts on an EX and it just wins the game. What's worse is that Iron Crown and Future Booster Capsule could up this attack's damage to 220 instead, meaning you're instantly taking 3 prize cards on low HP EXs like Fezandipiti and Latias. This effect has existed before, but never to this level. And honestly, good riddance. I love my 1 prize decks, and this card just says no. The Gen 5 Monkey Trio is so unpopular. Actually, I take that back. They're very popular in how unpopular they are. But hey, they got some fun cards. The Monkey Trio ability let these guys ignore all the colorless energy and the cost of attacks used by these Pokemon. That is, as long as all 3 monkeys are in play. And with each having a different attack, you can play defensively, offensively, and you can even get some decent spread damage in. This deck sucks. It really sucks. It's just bad. But I like it. It has some sauce. Unfortunately, it's Raising Cane sauce.
Try as you might, I refuse to apologize.
Serena EX is a one-shot machine, with an asterisk. For 1 grass energy, put damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon until its remaining HP is 30. Several different partners turned this into essentially a one-shot attack, using things like poison damage, spread damage, damage manipulation, and even HP manipulation. This deck absolutely could have been a meta threat, but there are so many cards that can negate any shenanigans this deck wants to pull. Not to mention how slow and inconsistent it'd be without proper draw support. Still, its power is as undeniable as Mariah Carey thawing in November. It's February. Roaring Moon EX was never going to be a bad card, with options to either deal 220 damage and discard a stadium in play, or just simply knock out your opponent's active. It's such a cool card. Though it never had great results on its own, it saw play in plenty of toolbox decks. But its recent success comes from being the backup attacker in the Poison Donk deck. Going first, you'll use several different ways of turboing through your deck and try to set up a Brute Bonnet with an Ancient Booster Capsule, both also from this set, alongside later releases of Pecharunt and Perilous Jungle. With all this set up, you're dealing 80 poison damage between turns, meaning that if the only thing your opponent has in play is a single 80 HP or less Pokemon, you would win the game before your opponent even gets a chance to play their first turn, leaving them wondering if they should even bother moving on to game 2. Poison Donk is a threat to most any evolving deck, but its #1 partner had to be Cloth. If affected by a special condition, like Poison, Unhinged Scissors deals 190 damage. Slap on a double turbo and maybe a Binding Mochi for extra damage, and this absolute unit of a one-prizer is absolutely kicking butt and taking names. It's all quite a lot of play in big tournaments, with several top 8s, and even taking first in the 2025 EUIC, using both the donking ability and Cloth's high damage output for early game wins. I definitely enjoy playing some Poison Donk myself, and then it got turned back on me by a child, and I now see the error of my ways. There were seriously so many meta-altering cards from this set, so let's try and speedrun a few of them, shall we? Toedscool prevents your opponent from putting cards in their hand from the discard pile. Iron Bundle forces your opponent to switch out their active Pokemon. Armor Rouge EX takes 80 less damage from attacks when at full HP and does 40 plus 40 for each energy attached to it. Kingdra deals 60 damage to any Pokemon for each energy you found from the top 6 of your deck. For 1 energy, Garchomp EX deals 160 and attaches 3 energy from the discard pile to the bench. It can also bench snipe for 120. Mewtwo EX does 10 plus 30 for each psychic energy attached to all of your Pokemon. Pair that with this set's Xatu to attach a psychic energy to a benched Pokemon and draw 2 cards. Tapu Koko EX deals a bit of damage and paralyzed if the opponent took a knockout during their last turn. Iron Valiant EX's ability put 2 damage counters on an opposing Pokemon when moved from the bench to the active. Screamtail dealt 20 times the amount of damage counters on itself to any one of your opponent's Pokemon. Hoopa EX was a situational fighting type attacker, dealing 50 damage times the amount of energy on your opponent's board. Slitherwing was also a good fighting type attacker, but it also burned the opposing active, getting around some OHKO protection. Aegislash was immune to EXs and Vs. Aegislash EX hit for 70 for each prize card you had taken. And finally, Bombardier EX could grab 3 basic Pokemon from the deck, place them on the bench, even if it was your first turn going first. I'm not out of breath. I took my time with that. It's honestly insane how many good cards there were in this set. I don't even think I got to them all. But I'd be remiss not to talk about the absolute best card in the set, Goldengo EX. An absolute menace, this card attacks for 1 metal energy and does 50 damage for each energy discarded from hand. With the sheer amount of energy draw there is in this game, both from the deck and discard pile, this is the best one-shotting machine the game has probably ever seen. And it doesn't stop there. In order to pull off attacks even easier, its ability lets it draw a card. 2 if it's in the active spot. If you managed to set up 4 of these on your board, it wasn't impossible to draw 6 or 7 new cards essentially for free. Goldilocks just kept getting more and more support with new set releases, so it's been one of the most consistent archetypes since it released. Just slightly less consistent than a lying politician.
Oh sure, now you're clapping the most basic take of all time. Frick all y'all.
Paradox Rift had a lot of great trainer cards too, especially for energy acceleration. Earthen Vessel let you discard a card from hand and search your deck for 2 basic energies. Mela attaches a fire energy from the discard, then you draw until you have 6 cards in hand. And Professor Sada's Vitality, taking 2 energy from the discard, attaching them to 2 ancient Pokemon, then drawing 3. This set also saw the introduction of Technical Machines, tool cards that let the Pokemon use the attack listed on the card. Power up your Pokemon with energy, evolve your Pokemon, devolve your opponent's Pokemon, or attack with a conditional 100 damage snipe. All good and even great in their own right. I hope we get more of these in the future. 2 different booster capsule tool cards, one for ancient Pokemon, giving them 60 more HP and an immunity to status conditions, and the other giving future Pokemon a free retreat cost and 20 more damage. A little more Pokemon search in Techno Radar, discard a card from hand, and search your deck for 2 future Pokemon. Luxurious Cape gave 1 prize Pokemon 100 more HP at the cost of giving up another prize card. And to top it all off, Professor Turo Scenario. Pick up any of your Pokemon in play and discard all attached cards, taking liabilities off the board. So glad to make up for lost ground with such a jam-packed set. Will our final set continue the trend? 3. There are 3 cards worth talking about. Well, at least they're halfway decent cards. Espathra EX was actually very good in certain formats, dealing 30 plus 30 for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. It also has the Dazzling Gaze ability, making your opponent's Pokemon need 1 more energy to attack. Pair this with Xatu, and it was honestly a really cool check against some decks with low energy counts.
Scotty, we need more. I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. She can't take any more.
Moonlit Hill let either player discard a psychic energy from hand and heal 30 damage from each of their Pokemon. Early on, it was great in Gardevoir, allowing for some much needed damage manipulation. Without it, Drifloon was maxed out at 300 damage. This bit of healing gave it the ability to do 30 more, which was very relevant against Stage 2 decks. Unfortunately, it was massively outclassed not too long after. And finally, Technical Machine Crisis Punch. If your opponent had 1 prize card remaining, this attack dealt 280 damage for 3 energy. A backup late game attack for that much damage that potentially any Pokemon could use was pretty dang good, even if a bit hard to pull off. But some decks were more than capable of making use of it. Well, that's it for these cards, but I can't be too upset. This was a reprint set after all, giving everyone some more opportunities to pick up some playable cards they might have missed out on before. Besides that, it's a shiny set. Shinies being a rare color of Pokemon in the games, it's always fun to have a fresh coat of paint on a Pokemon you love. And on top of all that, this is the set that got me back into Pokemon.
You did this to me!
I really only ever dabbled during the late Black and White and early X and Y eras. I liked collecting and trading with my siblings while we played whatever mess of a game we could muster with our limited packs. And now we have adult money to buy all the cards we want. 6 great sets of varying impact. I know these cards and this game means a lot to so many people. Newbies getting into the game, playing nothing but their favorite Pokemon. Oldies discovering new strategies and pushing themselves to the very top of competition. And guys like me who just enjoy trading and playing the game with people I never would have met otherwise. And though I'm a little nervous at the prospect of losing some great consistency, I'll always look forward to what lies ahead.
I can't wait for next year when Dragapult frickin' dies.